Hey everyone, Jack here. Going to be doing commentary over a 21 Nokhud offensive that we timed here for this week, and just flashing up my talents for my build. I'm playing the Protection Warrior, so those are the talents that I used. And just going to play the playback. We'll do some commentary over it here. So this is 21 Nokhud offensive for fortifying, bolstering, storming, and thundering. So it was a pretty clean run overall. I do think there's places where we could have gone a bit faster, but I'll kind of go over that as we look at the key here. So starting off, going into the Granyth area first, I like to pull the big pat, the pat that kind of goes in a V and goes around the outside of all the other mobs there. That's the pat I like to pull with Lust first. Pulling it with Lust, make sure that Lust is available for the next area, which is really nice to have. So I do pull it that first pack just with Lust. As you see, we're going to jump in, charge in there, and we're popping all our damage cooldowns and then popping some defensives early on just to stabilize. So you can see we are sitting in battle stance here, especially since we have defensives up. Not too worried about it there. Do want to make sure that none of the disruptive shouts get off, as well as the rallying of the clan, as that increases all the mobs damage by 50%, I think it is. So those are kind of the only two things you really have to worry about, apart from getting out of War Stomp. But there's not too much you really have to worry about in terms of interrupts, in terms of stops for these packs here for the Granyth area. I think the most dangerous packs are the War Spears. As you can see, we're getting ticked down a lot from that dot that's going on us from the pierce that the War Spears do. Also, the dot that the War Spears will do when they leap onto one of our allies. It's just, that's a lot of damage for sure. So yeah, we do see the hunter does die due to a war spear. I think he might have got double jumped there. And our dot has fallen off. Very nice. And I think we were at 4 stacks there, so he was doing a lot of damage. And I'm still staying in battle stance, so I wasn't too worried about dying. We did have another use of our shield wall there. It's a good reason why it's nice to pop shield wall early, especially have the talent that reduces its cooldown when you're doing your shield slams there. You can have, I had 2 shield walls in that one pull, so it's really nice to have. So one thing I could have done, it is bolstering, so we want to keep that in mind. We want to make sure we're focusing the highest health mob, which is going to be the Lance Masters, the Lieutenant mobs in this case, focusing them down first and just AoEing everything around it. I could, if the Lance Master lives a bit longer, I could probably pull it into the next pack. Even though it is bolstering, it should be fine. You can probably just pull it, and then it wouldn't be too big of a deal to bolster just one stack of bolster on the others. But yeah, that's something I'd probably do in some hierarchies there. But I was pretty confident that we'd get this time. Our damage seemed pretty good. I'm running with 3 of the other guys I normally run with, which is a Subtlety Rogue, Marksman Hunter, and then Restoration Druid. And then we had a Pug Rogue in there as well, the Pug Outlaw Rogue that we ran with here. So this first pull, Nokhud, I feel like this first part rather is pretty kind of cookie cutter. It's hard to do double pulls of like really full double pulls when you're not just pulling one mob into another here. So we kind of just do one pack at a time. The only really scary thing again is the War Spears here. So definitely if you have 2 War Spears in a group, you want to stun the other one just to make sure you're desyncing them much as possible there. So you can see we got a stun on that rallying of the clan. And then getting on the Planestopper for the interrupts. The next zone with the Raging Tempest is definitely going to be a lot more about interrupting here, but now we only have 1 mob that we have to interrupt, so it is more chill. It is nice here. So here we go, again, on to that next pack. If he was a bit higher health, say if he was like 25-30% health, I definitely consider pulling him into the next group there. I do think even so, I can probably pull faster, just going into the next group right when it dies right away. Probably save a few seconds per pull here. So this pack, I believe we have 2 War Spears. In this pack, we don't have to worry about the Horn Sounder here. And this is typically the route that I would take going around. Sometimes I do the other pack first. Kind of depends where the pat is when the pat dies. So in this case, the pat was closest to this pat. So I just kind of pulled this one next here. But yeah, these, in terms of tanking, I feel like you never really, apart from that very first pull where we got a lot of stacks of Pierce, you're never really at threat of dying, especially if you're rotating your cooldowns effectively. So you can see a lot of these pulls, I don't even need to use my cooldowns, especially as a Protection Warrior. You're just so tanky. You can pretty much just keep Shield Block up, keep your Ignore Pain up, and then you'll be good to go. you can stay in battle stance and then just take everything, even on fortified out of 21. So yeah, this part seems a lot more chill, I feel like here. So here we go. We have one more big pack to go. I'm just waiting for the healer. I think he's drinking up back there. And this pack, we do have that horn sounder, so make sure we stop that rally of the clan cast. And then make sure we get the interrupt, of course, on the big mob here. Here we go. And a lot of what I've been really focusing on in these dungeons is maximizing my damage more, because I'm not really scared of dying, again, like I said. So really trying to maximize my damage more. And as prot warrior, what you can do is making sure you're using your damage cooldowns pretty much on cooldown. If the mobs are like about to die, you don't want to waste them. So make sure for your Thunderous Roar, you're getting that full dot duration on them. You're using Ravager, you get that full duration for Ravager there. And keeping in mind that if you do have threat issues or if you have damage dealers that just really pump, you might need to save that for getting threat on the next pull here. But for the most part, you can use it off cooldown and it'll be fine. Another way you can really pump out damage is neglecting Shield Slam a little bit on big AoE pulls, especially when your Avatar and Demo Shout are up. So going between Revenge and Thunderclap, Revenge and Thunderclap can really net you a lot of damage there. If you do need a bit more defensive, you can do some Shield Slams just to build up a few stacks there from your talents. But apart from that, you should be okay just to go between Revenge and Thunderclap, and you'll be generating a ton of rage as well, because you should be talented in the talent that gives you rage back for, I believe it has a chance to give you rage back, depending on your bleeds there. So that's definitely really nice. And it'll give you a lot of rage, especially on big pulls such as like Algathar Academy. You just get so much rage on that pull here. Here we go. A bit of a sketchy. I think both War Spears charge the healer. So got a bit sketchy there, but we got him up, managed to recover. Hunter does have battle res, I believe, the Tinker slot. So I think that's what happened. Battle res the healer there. And then got up. We got kind of low, but it's all good. We managed to recover here. And after this, I do like doing this pack last before the boss, just because there is a bit of RP from the boss. So it kind of it saves a bit of time there, since you're not doing a Lancer pack and then waiting for the boss to do a few seconds of RP. You can get some count while that's happening here. So on this boss, pretty easy boss. I'd say the easiest boss in here. Yeah, really just focus on bringing the boss a little bit towards the ballistas that are active. Our healer's going to be getting the ballistas. So just keeping everyone in range of heals, and then make sure we get stuns and then slows as well if we need to on the saboteurs. I do hamstring them if needed, if not slowed already. And yeah, just bringing him a little bit to the ballistas there. We are using the ballistas on cooldown just because they do deal a significant, I think it's 5% of Granyth's overall health, which is pretty good. So using them on cooldown, make sure you can get that done. So a lot more damage on the boss, as well as you can skip one of the AoEs that the boss does, which is nice too. Helps out the healer if they're able to skip that. And of course, you stop the eruptions, but you don't actually have to wait for the eruption to happen in order to use the ballista. You can just use it on cooldown, and then you just won't cast eruption until the next time that he's supposed to. So it's a nice little tip there as well for this boss. But yeah, for the most part, just trying to do as much single target damage as we can. Again, look, we're still in battle stance here. Not worried about dying at all on this boss. This boss really doesn't do a whole lot of damage to us, especially if we're not standing in the circles there. And just helping out to kill the saboteur, so our damage dealers can have big uptime on the boss there. And yeah, just heroic throwing a little bit while we're out of range, pulling the boss a bit closer to the ballistas, and just rinsing and repeating for the most part. And of course, always keeping an eye on Thundering here. Thundering can really cause some dirty wipes. I know it definitely has for me and a lot of other people. So definitely keep an eye on Thundering. Luckily, 4 of us are in Discord together. The pug isn't in Discord, but 4 of us are, so we're able to somewhat coordinate that with Thundering and everything as well. There we go. I think we have one more ballista to go here before we move on to the next area. Here we go. And for the saboteur, as a prot warrior, you can also charge to root them in place just for a second there, which helps too. And of course, you have quite a few stuns. Depending on what you're talented into, you do have quite a few stuns, so that always helps there. And so after this ballista, Granyth's just going to flop over. There he goes. And we'll go into the next part. And of course, in Nokhud, make sure you're quite proficient at your dragon riding. So you usually like to take off first, do a nice whirlwind, the one that costs 3 energy there, and then just kind of spam surge forwards from there. And then, yeah, going between these winds to give us a bit of height, give us a bit of speed too. So I like to start off in the waterfalled area in the Raging Tempest area here. I feel like this is the hardest, the pull you're going to be taking the most amount of damage, or at least one of them here. There's 2 arc blades, which do a lot of damage. You can stun their casts, but they do a lot of damage still. And then the storm speakers, I generally like to get pretty much all the stops I can on the storm speakers. So I can get the interrupts. I can also have a lot of stuns. Obviously, I took fear as well. So I get whatever I can on the storm speaker, as well as assign my DPS to interrupt the storm caller. Just because you're not able to stun the storm caller or anything, you need hard interrupts. And the storm bolts, especially at this level and going higher, they can deal a lot of damage. I think they usually do like 75% ish of someone's damage if they go off. So I can imagine on pugs when you're not coordinated. As you can see, yeah, Stormbolt just went off on the healer, did I think around 70-75% of their health just with that one cast. So if that's paired with something else, that would really hurt. And I am going in defensive stance for this area, just because as you saw, I did dip a bit low there. There's a lot of damage going out. A lot of it is magic damage as well. We'll be taking, yeah, quite a bit more damage. But yeah, I do feel like I can be pressing my defensives more. I feel like I hold them a little bit too long than I should. I can probably be, a bit more loose with them. Use them a bit more kind of on cooldown, especially shield wall there. Here we go. I use it in this pull here. We do get the pats, which shouldn't be, I think it'll be a huge deal. We have Tempest. We want to make sure we stop that. And it did get 2 casts off. That's I probably should have stopped that more. I didn't have interrupt up, didn't have my fear. So I had to war stomp. I think it's the only thing that I actually had there. Here, you want to make sure that the totem does do a lot of AoE damage, so it is nice to kill that totem early. It doesn't bolster as well, so you can safely kill that on bolstering without bolstering anything here. And of course, since it is bolstering, we do want to make sure that just for the sake of time, we are focusing damage into the high lieutenant guys, so that'll be the storm callers in this case. And then once they are bolstered, if they do get bolstered, make sure that you get the interrupts because they're going to start to one-shot really quickly here. So now after this pack, it kind of depends where the pad is for me. So if the pad is close, I'll usually get the pad first. So here, I just went towards the pad here. And make sure you stop those thunder strikes. That's going to do a lot of damage. I found that the storm shields do a lot of damage to you. So they actually really slap you pretty hard, as well as the Thunder Beast. So I stay in defensive stance. I think pretty much throughout most of these pulls, I will stay in defensive stance. I could probably weave in and out a bit more too when some mobs are dying, but just for safety's sake, staying in defensive stance there. You see, I am rotating cooldowns here. Probably could have saved Demo until wall ended there, but yeah, could have saved it for a few seconds there, to be honest. And we should be trying to stop these. So I interrupted that storm shield. It doesn't just make sure that it does cast it after that again, but it delays it a little bit there. You're able to purge those storm shields off, which will save you a lot of time. So hopefully you have someone that's able to do that. Shaman, great for that, just purging it right off. Very nice. We do have our hunter doing it in this case. So if you didn't have anyone that could do it, it's going to be a lot more time you're going to waste just killing those there. And once that's done, I go on to this pack here. This pack, not too bad. We only have 1 arc blade here, so not as bad as the very first pack we did with 2 arc blades, but still a lot of damage going out. I mean, having 2 things to interrupt can always be a pain, especially when you have one person not in Discord, you're not really coordinating with them, just coordinating with everyone else here. And we do get that stop on the Tempest, which is nice because that would be a lot of AoE damage going out. Making sure to move the mobs out of the AoE on the ground, the totem area. And then, so for storming, I do try to soak storming when it's safe. So when there's no kind of frontals going around, when I'm not going to be thrown up in the air and landing in some dangerous AoE, I will soak it myself as a tank. However, in cases where I could land in some AoE or if there's just not that much around, then I tend to avoid it there. But I like to soak it when I can, just to help out the melee DPS so I can stay in and not really move around as much. So this is the easiest pack, let's say, in here. You just have 2 arc blades and then the Stormcaller. So interrupts are easy, just one thing to interrupt there. Can be a lot of damage going out, but you're able to use your stuns and stops on the arc blades cast if you need to. So that definitely helps out a lot here. So I do go into battle stance here. I went for a little bit without shield block. Should have kept that up there. Maybe even should have last stand, as I believe I'm running bolstering. So I could have last standed and just shield block if I didn't have the rage to do so here. But we did get a stun on that arc blade cast, which is nice. And just moving out of the totem area now. Making sure we get interrupts on the Stormcaller. And yeah, this is kind of a nice pack to, yeah, if people need to recover cooldowns and whatnot on, this could be the place to do so. Again, it's not really a deadly pack like the other ones are, especially because you only have one caster. That really makes the big difference here. Here we go, moving on to the boss. On fort, we probably could have lusted something else, but we do opt to lust the boss. The boss can be a little bit scary here, especially on Tyrannical. But even on fort, can do a fair bit of damage. So waiting for a healer to drink up a little bit, and then we're going in. Remember, as a prot warrior, you're able to spell reflect the wind burst. So when you're out of range, out of melee range of him, he will cast wind burst on the tank or whoever he has threat on. So you're able to spell reflect that and deal quite a bit of damage with that. So definitely use that to your advantage. You can weave in and out, use your spell reflect on that when you need to. And here we did have our, I think, Hunter and Rogue. I think they were stacked on each other when the lightning strike was going out. Yeah, I think that was actually the Rogues. Yeah, Rogue's in my bed. I think he accidentally went onto the Hunter when that was happening. I think he was trying to get orbs, but then he went on the Hunter. So not ideal there. I think we only had 1 battle res, so not able to get the other Rogue up. So it'll be a bit of a longer fight, but at least it'll be easier on the healer for the storms. Healer only has to heal 4 people instead of 5 now, so not too worried about getting through the boss at this point. We know it'll be longer, but it won't be too bad. It will take a bit more time, though, unfortunately. But yeah, on this boss, just making sure we do spell reflect there again, as you saw, kind of weaved out, got an orb, and the spell reflected and charge back in. It's kind of what you want to do when you can. Obviously, if you're low on health, you want to use that spell reflect on just reducing magic damage towards you, but if you're able to afford it, then might as well. But here we leap away. It was kind of a dangerous spot with the swirlies on the ground there, so just saving leap for if we have to do that. And then just making sure that no orbs hit the boss, because that's just unnecessary AoE damage that the healer's going to have to heal. So really helping out wherever we can with soaking these orbs. It is better for the healer and the damage dealers to get the orbs just to get their stacks up. But if we have to soak it so it doesn't hit the boss, then that's good too. We just don't want it hitting the boss. And usually during these storms, I like to kind of go around and then soak the orbs here, yeah, just to help the healer out there. So I do Rallying Cry on this one, so I coordinate with my healer. My healer does his cooldowns on the very first electrical storm, and then I'll rally this second one here, just because he doesn't have as much cooldowns up. So Rally just gives a bit more leeway there for the health with that 15% extra health. And we're going to weave out another spell reflect. There we go. And just kind of rinsing and repeating. If we had our other damage dealer up, I think we probably would have only gotten 2 storms maybe. But I think we'll get a third, might get a third one here. Here we go, just getting out of the stuff on the ground. And then going to soak the orbs again here. Just making sure you're using your damage cooldowns, especially with 1 damage dealer down. Make sure you're pumping as much as you can. And again, as a protection warrior, doing a lot of damage with spell reflect. There's definitely a few things in here you're able to spell reflect, which helps a lot. Yeah, I do stay in defensive stance here as well, just for safety. I probably could have gone in battle stance, to be honest, but just for the safety of it, especially since we already had 1 person down here. Want to be safe, don't want to put any additional pressure on the healer here. Storms, just grabbing orbs, and boss is almost dead here. So yeah, on Tyrannical, that's definitely going to be a lot more sketchy. Definitely for the healer as well, a lot harder to heal through. And just kind of blocking that here, going out, and there we go. And make sure to clear Thundering. Now we move on to the third area, the Teera area here. So for this area, we're going to get most of our count. We're going to finish out the count pretty much on this area. We do skip the 2 mobs, I believe, before the last boss. So we're going to get the whole like 45% what we need here from this area. So pulling almost everything here. And we do start, depending on kind of cooldowns that we have up, we either start to the pack to the right, this one here, or we start the pack to the left here. We do have to wait for healer and rogue there. So we're just starting to this easier pack to the right, just because healer's not here, rogue's not here yet, but we want to keep going. We don't really need a healer yet in the pull, so we'll just pull this, and we'll pull the other pack after here. The beast colors, just make sure we get the interrupts on those, otherwise it'll summon a bunch of other beasts that'll do a fair bit more damage to you. It wouldn't really be lethal, but it's just kind of annoying, especially if you're not able to get thread on them. We are in battle stance here again, just pumping damage as this pack isn't really deadly here. But usually I would do the other pack first before doing this one if the whole group's here. But if you're missing people are running back or whatnot, you can just do this pack pretty safely without much need for heals here. Most things died pretty similar. This is bolstering, it's very nice. We're going to try to get the birds here. So try to get everything together, popping our cooldowns, our shield wall, just because it can get a bit sketchy towards the beginning of the pull. But once we stabilize, generally pretty easy, especially on pulls where you have a lot of mobs and you're generating a lot of rage there. So we do have Mortal Strikes. We want to stun the Mortal Strikes when we can. I'm going to stun one off there. Get the interrupts on the Deathbolt volleys. And that's kind of the main thing, just getting the interrupts on the Deathbolt volleys. There will be mobs that do Deathbolt as well. If you're in Discord with people, you're able to assign those to people. You can reflect the Deathbolts too, so it makes it not too bad. With the volleys, you definitely want to make sure you do interrupt, as it'll deal a fair bit of damage, especially if people already took damage from the Shattered Soul, as you saw there. It could definitely be pretty deadly. And here we go. The Death Speakers will usually be the ones that are left, just because they do the Chant of the Dead, where you got to move the mobs out of the Chant of the Dead, otherwise they'll be buffed. I think it's around 20% if they stand in the Chant of the Dead there. So chances are this Death Speaker would be buffed up there. Honestly, we could probably pull this into the next pack. He had a lot of health left, and even if he just stays there, we're not going to lose threat on him because we've been banging on him for a while. So we could probably just move him into the next pack pretty safely without these things really being bolstered until he gets there. Probably do that for the next time, to be honest. Here we go. And you see, we're still in battle stance, just kind of pumping away, doing what we can. For damage, definitely using that Thunderclap on cooldown. Try to get Revenge before Thunderclap 2. If you took the talent, that does buff it up. I think that's by 20% if you Revenge and the Thunderclap there. But yeah, just doing as much AoE damage as you can here. As you know, as long as you dodge the frontals, you're not really fearing for your life. And again, just making sure you do get interrupts on the Deathbolt volley is kind of the biggest thing here. We do have one caster that kind of just kept casting Deathbolt outside there, but it's not a huge deal. Pulled him out as he was kind of getting low health there. But most of the other things are dying. Pretty similar here. And again, since taking this route that I take, we are going to pull almost everything in this room here. But most of the mobs aren't bad, especially if you're able to assign kicks, assign stops. Most of the stuff isn't too bad here. I feel like this pull, even though it's only a 4-pack, it doesn't look like much, that because there's 2 death bolts that can actually do a lot of damage to you, especially if Mortal Strikes get off, which reduce the healing there. So I usually like to focus on the Mystic and then just stop the Swift Winds. If that gets off, it increases the haste of all the enemies by quite a bit. So very, very good idea to stop that. Otherwise, you'll be taking a lot more damage, and the cast will be going off a lot quicker there. You go, just soaking the storming here since it's safe. There's no frontals happening. So you can safely soak stormings. Just make sure the melee don't have to deal with it there. And then we'll go on to the next pack in a second here. Make sure mortal, yeah, make sure that mortal strike debuff wears off before going into the next pack. You don't want that going in. Might mess everything up there. Just pop shield wall right away just to be safe. And then we're going. We do have a Mystic, which I marked with X, and then the Soul Harvester, which does the Deathbolt volley marked with Skull here. So we're cleaving off Skull, and then making sure we get interrupts on Skull, and then X as well for the Swift Winds and the Deathbolt volleys. We do have a Deathbolt going off, but it's fine. They kind of only cast on us. And, we just reflected that one, so it's not too bad. I think we're doing pretty decent damage overall. Still think we can pump more than this even, but pretty happy with the damage going out currently. Everything's dying at around the same time, which, I mean, for bolstering, it's perfect, right? And here we go. I'm looking at Lust. So we have a minute on our Lust cooldown. So I'm thinking, okay, well, we can probably do the boss maybe after this pull, just so we can get a Lust, and then we'll be able to get another Lust after that as well because of how the timing's working. So just making sure we use late. If we did all our trash first, we'd probably be around 10 minutes or sub 10 minutes, and we wouldn't be able to get a second use of Lust potentially. So just keeping an eye on the Lust debuff there. So here we have another Mystic in the pack, as well as Soul Harvester. So making sure I stun that Swift Winds there. I don't know if I assigned anyone to it, but you have a lot of stuns and stops, so you're able just to use it if you're not sure if anyone's going to get it. But yeah, biggest thing on these, really for bolster, just killing everything at the same time here. And then big thing as a tank as well, just for positioning. Try not to move the mobs a whole lot here. I mean, there's times like here where you're going to have to for the Chant of the Dead, for frontals and whatnot. But if you can kind of help it, try to keep them in around the same area. It'll help your DPS out a lot, especially DPS. Like if you had an Elemental Shaman that have to drop Earthquake on the ground, it'll help them out a ton. Just knowing kind of where the AoE effects are there. Here we go. We see that someone does have to start the RP. So we had Hunter Rogue starting the RP here. And we're just going to do another trash mob because we have to wait for the RP anyway. So might as well just do some trash while we're waiting for the RP. Otherwise, we're just wasting time kind of standing there. So this pack, pretty easy pack. Just make sure we get the kicks on the Mystic. Other than that, kicks can go on the Death Bolts. And yeah, this whole time we've kind of been in battle stance, just kind of pumping, doing what we can for the damage here. Making sure to move the mobs out of that Chant of the Dead there. And after this, I believe we should be going to the boss, just so we can get Lust up, and then Lust the way back up again at around 2 minutes left on the timer. So in case that we're still killing the last boss at that time, we're able to get another instance of Lust in, which can be pretty huge. And just waiting up for the healer here. And we'll go in. Make sure to taunt Maruuk to us. And then make sure to keep them stacked, obviously, at all times. If they're within 15, if they're not within 15 yards of each other, then they'll be doing stacking damage pretty quickly. So make sure they're stacked on top of each other. That was nerfed. It was previously 10 yards, which it seemed like a very fine range. Like even if Maruuk was like pretty close, then they'd still be stacking the dot, or the debuff rather. But now it's 15 yards. So you have more leeway. As you saw with that Gale Arrow, we did stack. So if you stack, it just deals the damage like one instance of the Gale Arrow hit everyone. So, and then it's a lot easier to dodge these tornadoes here. So stacking is definitely a good idea on those. I did use intercept as well. Targeted Teera and then did target of target and then intercepted that. So nice tip for prot warriors. I know they did nerf this, so quick shot used to happen right after the Gale Arrows happen. Now there is a bit of a delay, but if you're able to intercept and just give your party that much more time to recover so that quick shot kind of goes on you next, it'll help a lot. And here, we just focus on using defensive cooldowns on the Brutalize. On Fortified, again, we're still in battle stance, so on Fortified, it's not really doing a whole lot. If we have a big Ignore Pain up, might not even chew through our Ignore Pain. So I'm not too worried about us dying for the most part. But still, might as well use defensives, make it a bit easy on the healer so the healer can do a bit more damage there. And keeping them stacked up. Whenever Teera jumps away, just want to charge at Teera. Just makes it so Maruuk can get to her that much quicker there. And then going a bit behind Teera so they're stacked up. The DPS can cleave nice and well. And for that interrupt there, you're actually able to interrupt before you get knocked back. If you are close to Teera, you can, while it's happening, you can interrupt kind of when you just get knocked back there. And then you can just charge back from there. From here, as we can see, we have a Gale Arrow coming out. We got about 3 seconds. People should be stacking up. If they're not able to get towards you, then they can just stay out. Here we go. We're able to stack up there. We're targeting Teera. And Teera did target us there, so we didn't need to intervene, and that was fine. And now bosses are dead. Pretty good. So we do need a bit more trash before going on to the last boss. We are getting 100% before moving on to the last boss there. What is it? Trash in the chat, just for so the pug knows that we're not going there. So this we need, let's see, 11% more. Probably could have chained this with the pat that kind of pats more north of here, but that's all right here. I was pretty confident we were doing pretty well on time at this point, so didn't want to do anything to kind of jeopardize the key right now. But with that pat, as you can kind of see in the top of the screen there. Well, we did have the healer go down there. I think it was to one of the frontals, and the frontals were hard to see on the hill. So it's one thing to note too. The frontals are kind of hard to see on the hill, so ideally don't pull them on the hill. And I think we're just saying if we do have a battle res up, and Hunter is battle resing healer, I think it keeps failing, fortunately, but I believe he does get him up eventually here. But again, I mean, we're pretty tanky as a pro warrior. This pull isn't too bad. But yeah, we definitely could have saved a lot of time there by chaining that into the pat there for sure. Now I'm seeing what we have up. Let's see. Now I'm like, okay, we'll go for this one. Mark the 2 mystics here. Make sure we get the kicks on the swift winds. And then just pump the damage from there. I probably didn't have to move them so far. I find sometimes I've had pugs that kind of stand in the Chant of the Dead if I move them just outside of there. So honestly, I didn't trust that that wasn't gonna happen again. So that's why I moved them a bit further than I probably needed to. But yeah, you can move them just to the edge there, and then kind of turn them around, keep them as close to the Death Speaker as you're able to, or maybe a bit of cleave can hit the Death Speaker there. But yeah, single pulls aren't too bad. Again, this might have been something we could have double pulled here, but not too worried about time. Really, we're quite doing quite well. We have 2%. Saying, okay, what can give us 2% here? So it's this pack. So if we pull that with the pack before, it would have been a big time save. But yeah, and we'll definitely do that in the future here. This pack, not much going on, just swift wins. After this, we'll be able to go to the last boss, and there is kind of a cheese you're able to do with the 2 mobs. You'll see it when we get there. You're able to skip the 2 mobs before the last boss, so if you just pull the last boss and not do anything, then the 2 mobs will aggro, and you'll have the 2 mobs as well as the last boss, which that's not the greatest time. Probably wipe at that point, but if you're able to have a hunter that can feign death, mage can invis, rogue can invis, they're able to pull the 2 right before you pull the last boss. Once they pull the 2 and they're aggro to that person, you as a tank can pull the last boss, and then they invis or feign death, and then that'll be fine. And they just will reset, and then that person can come and just help with the last boss there. So remember, this is a good route to going toward the last boss. You don't have to go to the entrance. You can just go right here and you'll land here. You can skip all the mobs, and yeah, it's pretty easy going that route. I just have to avoid that pat there. I do go around this side just to be safe here. Here we go. We have Skull Marker. That's for the boss. That's where you can put the spears so the boss charges into the rock, as you will see. And we have the Hunter on the top right. He is pulling the two mobs. He feigned deaths right when they're pulled. And I pull the boss. And then, yeah, the two mobs just reset. And we can just deal with the boss. So you don't have to kill those two mobs, which they take a long time, especially for the two of them there. So it's nice you're able to skip them in that way if you have the composition to do so. You see the rogue is running on the other side of the rock here. That's so the boss is able to charge, hit the rock. Melee can kind of stay on the boss and get big uptime. Well, that helps. That's a good tip. Helps a lot too. Make sure you don't put the spear on top of the rock, otherwise the boss will just charge over it. So it has to be on the other side of it. Here, make sure we're spreading. The boss can do quite a bit of damage to you, especially on Tyrannical. The Tyrannical, I do usually stay in defensive stance just because you're getting chunked. But here, for Fort, not worried about it. Kind of staying in battle stance for now here. And here we go. We're phasing. So we do have kicks assigned to the Stormcallers there. And just making sure that, so we do have a Rogue Blind one. So with that, okay, that's fine. We'll just leave that for now. Get everything else in. And once they're in, it's a lot easier. You can just get AoE stops going along with the single target stop. So got a shockwave there. We're going to have an interrupt that's going to be out. I think one cast got off, but not too bad. And our interrupt's up. We have fear still, so lots of stops we're able to do. Instead, we move on to the next phase. We bring the boss back to the rock area as the boss is still able to charge back into the rock, which can definitely help. Conductive Strike, that's a big one you're able to reflect. That actually does a lot of damage, and that'll be, I think your top overall will be Reflect because of that. So I should have probably popped it a little bit earlier there, a bit more preemptively. But yeah, definitely make sure you reflect the Conductive Strike. You don't get the dot on you, the debuff, and it reflects the damage, so that's huge. Another reflect there. You saw my damage spiked up a ton in the meters. I went up like 7 or 8k DPS for the whole fight, so that's huge. I do have the healer that died there. I think to the stomp. I'm not sure if they died to the conal explosion or just the AoE there. I did do a rallying as well. So we're just going back here. Got a bit scary because I didn't have reflect quite up there. We popped some defensives and we're okay. Stabilizing here. Healer does get up. We have a battle res for the healer. And yeah, those engineering sockets for battle res really saved us there for sure, big time. Another big reflect, big spike in damage. Boss is almost dead here. We're just trying to spread out for this. Make sure we're not cleaving anyone, and then we will be fine. And there it is. Boss dies, time 21. Pretty good key overall. We had some deaths, but no full wipes. Just a few deaths here and there, but they were able to be recovered by B-reses. And we got the Granyth's Enduring Scale. And it'd be nice to have like on a monk, but I don't know if we really need that on a protection warrior here. But thank you so much for watching. That's the key. Hopefully you learned something for protection warrior or just the key in general. And I'll catch you in the next one.